Donald Trump's administration is engaged in a cover-up, and I'm not just talking about Jeffrey Epstein, but oh boy will we be. They are covering up the policy choice and policy failure that is the epidemic of gun violence in this country, which they have ignored. They are also covering up the moral failure, which is how they have encouraged, laughed at, and mocked the epidemic of political violence in America. That is what they are covering up by attacking and targeting marginalized communities and trying to blame trans Americans for Charlie Kirk's shooting, which they aren't mourning but exploiting. And Donald Trump got caught in that all when he was caught deleting the clearest evidence yet of this cover-up. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Donald Trump was caught deleting and how it is blowing up this cover-up, I want to start with a Republican who called out MAGA for this very reason, and it was Tom Tillis right here.
Within 24 hours of Mr. Kirk's shooting, we had the guy that does the podcast for the War Room and another guy who's denied the Sandy Hook shootings say we're at war. Now, how on earth, and I do believe it's a smaller number, but it's a number that has an influence. How on earth are we de-escalating the situation? And with the tensions as high as they were last week, with going out and saying we're at war. I'm not asking you to respond to this question. I'm just saying that there are people out here on our side of the aisle that still need to look in the mirror. Even if you agree that it's a lower number, bad is bad no matter how many numbers they are. And that kind of rhetoric and that kind of mobilization makes your job more difficult and puts us in a position where we're not being as productive as you want the FBI and state and local law enforcement to be.
I refuse to be told that Democrats, who have not only condemned political violence and gun violence in their words, but in their actions, I refuse to be told that they have to apologize, waste time condemning, have obstacles put in the place of actual real conversation and action when Republicans have all but declared war on a marginalized group of people for existing, even though they refuse to acknowledge their existence and attack them for it. This is all about going after trans people. That is what Donald Trump wants. He knows that his attempts to scapegoat black and brown people and to try to round up immigrants, it's not working too well, so he's picked a different marginalized group, and he's trying to capitalize on this shooting by exploiting as much political gain out of it as possible. And he refuses to reckon with how Donald Trump's own language, how his rhetoric, what he has said, who he has mocked, what he has cheered on, has contributed to this all. They don't care. In fact, they are trying to hide from it. And it's not just Trump, it's the MAGA media. Listen to Scott Jennings have his own words thrown in his face.
I just want to read the words of someone who I think is very wise in the wake of 2019 and the killing in El Paso. He wrote, "We have to stop blaming the politicians we loathe for the vile actions of the deranged, evil people who commit mass shootings." He went on to say, but here's the thing, we should not, the rush to rage against Trump and the predictive punditry that he will inevitably fail to unite the country seems counterproductive to people who want a meaningful policy outcome. All politicians have a responsibility to ratchet down their own rhetoric and to ask their supporters to stand down as well. And that man was Scott Jennings. And so what I would say about that is those were wise words then, and they should be wise words now.
I don't disagree with any of that.
These people refuse to acknowledge how they have contributed, how they have built out a culture, an environment in which political violence is normalized, in which we are numb to it, in which it is expected. They don't seem to care to recognize that. They certainly don't care to want to change it. They want to use it. They want to exploit it. They want to use it to cast blame. That is what this administration is about. There has been no reckoning with how to stop the next shooting because Kash Patel is still the FBI director, even though he failed in his investigation. Because Republicans in Congress have refused to act. They don't care. They want to exploit and not reckon with their own role in what happened, which was very obvious with what Donald Trump was just caught deleting. DOJ quietly scrubs study on far-right attacks after Kirk shooting. The Department of Justice quietly deleted a study showing that far-right attacks outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. A June 2024 study on domestic extremism by the National Institute of Justice, a research agency under the DOJ's Office of Justice Programs, began noting that militant, nationalistic, white supremacist, violent extremism has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of right-wing attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism. It reads, since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists. The paper goes on to state that no single profile accurately captures the characteristics of the individuals who commit extremist and hate crimes, citing data from two NIJ databases. The study was on the OJP website until around Friday, when sharp-eyed social media users noticed that it had been replaced with an error message stating the request page could not be found. The deletion was first reported by Jason Palladino. The entire 13-page study can be accessed through an archived version of the web page. The paper generated renewed interest after Kirk, a conservative activist who pushed far-right values through his popular podcast, was shot in Utah. The assassination immediately set off a firestorm of finger-pointing between liberals and conservatives who accused each other of sowing political violence. Donald Trump was quick to hold radical left lunatics responsible for Kirk's killing, telling reporters that individuals and groups on the left have been placed under investigation. Donald Trump wants to put the whole left and any organization that broadly funds left-wing activity, and the very generalized term is incredibly important here, by the way. He wants to pit all of the blame on liberals and progressives at large. And why? Because Donald Trump doesn't want to reckon with the fact that overwhelmingly, disproportionately, we see this political violence being carried out by far-right extremists. One, because of the rhetoric of the right. And two, because of how fucking easy it is to access a gun in America. They do not want to reckon with those facts. They will delete them, they will hide them, they will run from them, and they will blame trans people for them. And the information that we have right now about the motivations of the shooter, leaked messages shared by journalists or police reports shared by law enforcement, show that while Donald Trump wants to blame the entirety of the trans community for a shooting, that you cannot pit on a singular group, especially a marginalized group in this country. The alleged assailant, their partner, who we believe to be trans right now, not only did not know of the shooter's motives, was distraught when learning, allegedly, that this was the action that they carried out, and is now, and immediately did, cooperate with law enforcement. How on earth could you spin this into an anti-trans attack, except if you are Donald Trump, a Republican, and have no political morals whatsoever, have no morals whatsoever, have no grounding principles or understanding of the world? This is simply an opportunity for Donald Trump to find a new group to hate, a new group for you to get mad at, so he can distract you, so he can cover up, and so he can spit his vile bile. That is all this is right now. Republicans are not in mourning for a dear friend. Republicans are exploiting for political gain this shooting. That is what is happening right now. Disproportionately, we see these attacks carried out by the same group. And an attack was carried out by that same type of individual on the same day of the Charlie Kirk shooting. But there were no Instagram stories for those kids in Denver. There was no care from the administration. There was no response. J.D. Vance didn't host a fucking podcast for it. Of course not. Because we know he's a ladder climber, always trying to exploit the opportunity. That didn't happen. The focus is on anything except what helps people. Nothing from this administration has helped anyone except for the wealthiest people in the history of the world that live in this country. They have only hurt us all. That is what they have done. And AOC focused on that in a way that needs to be talked about more right here.
Now, do you know how many jobs have been threatened or lost due to the Trump administration's closures of clean energy projects in the last 6 months or so, the first half of this year?
I'm not aware of any such analysis.
91,000. Trump administration and Department of Energy policies have cost Americans 91,000 jobs nationwide in rollbacks on efficiency. And, you know, these large numbers are statistics. They're hard to, I think, people to understand when they show up on a white paper. But in Colorado's 8th district, Amprius Technologies canceled plans to construct a $190 million battery plant in Brighton, Colorado. In that same district, actually, another company, VSK Energy, canceled plans due to the Trump administration, canceled their plans to build solar panels, and they scratched a $250 million investment and up to 900 jobs in that same district. In Georgia 12, an EV plant was canceled due to the Trump administration and DOE's freezing of the EV charging program. Registered Georgia has a population of 157 people. They lost out on 166 jobs. They lost more jobs than they have people in that town.
The goals of this administration are obvious: who they want to hurt, who they want to scapegoat, and who they want to make afraid. It is very clear, and it needs to be called out, and it needs to be called out by us. Now is not a time in which I will let the media rewrite the type of bile that Charlie Kirk spewed on college campuses. How you die does not excuse how you lived. And for us to venerate or mourn him as someone practicing free speech rather than trying to make millions and millions of dollars off of clips of him saying the most racist shit you will ever see on the internet, I'm not going to have it. All while this administration uses it as an opportunity to prevent any real change to keep children safe. I will not be dealing with that. I will not be accepting that. I'm going to be fighting back against that. And if you want to join this channel and the work that we're doing every single day to do so, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you need a little bit of moment of excitement and joy today, I had an interview with Governor Wes Moore. It's going to be linked right here. We had a lot of fun just throwing the football around. If you want to take 20 minutes and just relax and enjoy a good conversation and watch my really tight spiral, no, I'm joking. It's not that great. But if you need a moment, I hope you can enjoy that. And I appreciate you giving me this platform. Keep fighting. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.